Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for you today. This one I've been meaning to make for a little while, but it's nice that I waited until after these new round of artifacts that came out with the Atlantis DLC, because that has certainly changed the landscape of the artifact meta. This video will cover the best artifacts for Might, Play from the Trade DPS, as well as Precision DPS. So links in the comments will be to those two different sections if you just want to skip to the Precision section or back to the Might section. Covering it here, these are going to be the obviously the best artifacts, and that I'll give my opinion towards. There's a few different variations that you can have, but these are the three ideal ones that you want to work towards. So we'll cover Might first. So in terms of, I'll exclude the Bottled City Soda. This one is an artifact, technically an artifact soda. You should definitely get this one. All roles should have this at rank 8. It only takes like 111, 112,000 XP. The only drag is that it includes the breakthroughs and the breakthrough chances up to 160 because it's considered a 160 artifact. But every role, DPS, tank, healer, controller should all have this at rank 8. That's the very first artifact that you should work towards getting maxed out. Guaranteed 90% health, 90% power back. The bonuses doesn't really matter. Like, if you're clipping a trinket with a soda, you still get 1% might, 1% precision for 8 seconds. It goes to the entire group, but it's still something. It's basically like an ultimate caller. The tank roll, once again, doesn't matter as much. 8% of your max health, so that'll be handy if you're like fire or rage or focusing on max health. Controller, basically, your controller's using soda every off cooldown anyway to recover power. So that's just a bonus giving back. I think it's like 2,000, 3,000 power. Nothing major, but once again, it's all free. So that's the first artifact. No matter what your role is, you should have that first. Now on to Might. There's basically 3 artifacts. The Scrap Soul Cloak is one that's from the very beginning. Every Might DPS should have this currently, hopefully towards 160. It's been out long enough, but its max effectiveness is at 160. So every Might DPS should have the Scrap Soul Cloak. And we'll cover the Soul Amplifier in a sec. Now, this is the new artifact, the Eye the Gemini. Even my last video aside, if you've watched that on my opinion on Caster's Watch, it doesn't, even if they end up changing that in the future or whatever, it doesn't affect the DPS side. Pollux's Gaze, that's completely balanced and working completely fine. That was fine-tuned on test server. So it's Pollux's Gaze is always going to be deal 20% of all the damage dealt by players staying within the radius of Pollux's Gaze and restores 2% power every second. So that's not going to change even if they end up nerfing Caster's Watch in the future. So every DPS should have the Eye Gemini. It's basically free damage. I'll clip to a moment here of the Dco Log Analyzer showing how effective it can be, just as free damage essentially. Okay guys, I just wanted to share this example. If this looks unfamiliar to you, this is the Dco Log Analyzer. It's available to all PC players. It breaks down your combat log into nice little segments. So we're looking right here, Gemini's Vision. This is over the course of 2 raids, a Crown and the Thorn raid. Gemini's Vision accounted for 1.9% of my total damage between both raids. Obviously, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you break it down here, Gemini's Vision was almost 1.37 million damage, and that's just free. That's free damage. I didn't do anything to get that 1.37 million damage. I just hit Eye the Gemini and continued my rotation. So that's just extra free damage on top over the course of a couple raids. In terms of that number, Sork does not utilize Eye the Gemini very well at all. It's Neo Venom boost, which is just a flat 45% buff, or is it 40? Either 40 or 45. I forget what it was changed to. But yeah, in terms of that buff, and Sork doesn't really have the best melee rotation out there anyway. So in terms of like Rage or Earth or Nature or any power set with a really good 50%er, Gemini's Pollux's Gaze will be way higher than 1.3 million damage. So this is basically showing you like one of the worst power sets to use Gemini's Vision. You could still get like almost 1.5 million damage for free just over the course of using it. So even if you're a DPS running like Speed Drain, if you're super speed, Speed Drain's about an 80k total dot damage. and then you get to drop speed drain, Geminis on all the melee DPS out there. So there's plenty of opportunities and abilities to utilize Gemini's vision better, but this is just a small example of Sork, which is not even a good example, but you can see even with a bad example, it's still, almost 1.5 million damage. The third option, it's going to be Soul Amplifier. Even if you don't use Heat Vision, you need Soul Amplifier just for the 5% might. That's the downside. I would much rather run like Dead King Scepter and those bonuses, but you can't because of what you need Soul Amplifier for. So I'll show you here in a sec. So if I equip these 3 artifacts, my might is at 39,534. So now if I take that 39,534 and I equip like the Dead King Scepter instead of the Soul Amplifier, now my might drops to 38,266. So that's a loss of 1,268 might just by equipping that artifact, because the Gemini doesn't have any base might. As you see there, it's 0. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's still got the 3% buff. But even if you look at all the other might artifacts that are 3%, they still have 381 base might, just like the Scrap of Soul Cloak, and then offer 3% might. So Gemini loses 381, but still buffs 3%. The Soul Cloak's to 3%, and the Dead King Scepter is 3%. So that extra 2% might, that adds up. You can't afford to lose like 1,200 plus might, even if you're not using Heat Vision. And there's still plenty of power sets that use Heat Vision on the single target rotation. So it's just one of those things that until a 4th slot eventually becomes available, you have to run these 3. If a 4th one comes up, then you've got some other options. If you don't have those leveled, obviously the Tetrahedron at 160 is going to be handy. That's more of a group buff. That's why I don't recommend running it. If someone else has in the group has it, then great. If they don't, then there's not much sense, unless it's like, league run, you don't care about damage, you're just trying to help everyone out. Yeah, put your Tetra on just to buff everyone else. That's fine. But in terms of like quote unquote best artifacts, it's not included in that list anymore because you're helping everyone else as well. Right now, you have to fully embrace the supercharged meta, which would be Eye the Gemini, Scrap of the Soul Cloak, and Solar Amplifier. But you've got a few options. The Dead King is nice. Everything is off cooldown faster. Orbital Strikes increased by 20%. It's just because it's 3% might, you just can't run it without losing too much stats. So when a 4th slot comes up, great, put the Dead King on. Until then, run these 3. Okay, so on to the best DPS artifacts for precision DPS. While I'm not a precision DPS, I know what they're running, and I've talked to a few ones just to make sure that my thinking was correct. In terms of the best artifacts for precision, it's the same as might, where you have to run 2 of them, and the third one you've got some options, but there's some options better than others. So obviously, the very first one is going to be the Venomous Dispenser. That's a dead giveaway. Using a weapon buff increases your precision by 54% at 160, and reduces your base power regeneration by 10%. So this is the #1 staple for precision DPS. Every time you use a weapon buff, no matter what the power is. If you've got water, you can double up on the weapon buff with High Tide. So it's the Venomous Dispenser is going to be that go-to artifact for precision DPS. The second one is now embracing the new change with the supercharges, the Eye of the Gemini. So with that one, even if you're a melee DPS with precision using Smoke Bomb, you can still use Eye of the Gemini to take advantage of all the other might DPS. Or if there's like an Earth DPS using Jackhammer or whatever, Rage might DPS, it's essentially 100% free damage. You're going to be using whatever supercharge you're using anyway. If it's Neo Venom or something else power specific, you'll still be earning it quickly. So that's when you want to use that. And even if you're a ranged DPS using dual flurry shot on single target, the Eye of the Gemini is still free damage, because then you can just pop aside the other might DPS that are ranged, like munitions, electric, whatever, and still get the free damage from them. So Eye of the Gemini works just as well for might DPS as it does precision. The only downside is it doesn't have any base precision and doesn't offer it still gives the 3% precision. It just doesn't offer any base precision. So the third artifact, this one where some of the opinions may differ, but in terms of the best artifacts, best case scenario artifacts to increase your precision damage is going to be the Legionary Sparring Ai. This at 160, countering an enemy increases your precision and weapon DPS by 16% for a short time and grant some immunity. The immunity is kind of iffy. Even though this is a tank artifact, it's very strong for precision. And the other big thing is at 160, it's 5% precision. So essentially, it's the same thinking as the Soul Amplifier for Might. Might needs to run it because just of that extra 2% precision, and Precision DPS need to run the Sparring Ai because even if they don't get counters all the time or lunges with Smoke Bomb or block breaks with Flurry Shot, you're still getting that extra base 2% passive precision, which is very strong. The other two options you can run with Precision DPS, the Demon Fang. Once the same thing, every 12 seconds hitting an enemy with your weapon attack empowers your weapon while empowered. Your next 6 weapon attacks deal additional damage equal to your resto, and you get a little bit of power regen. That was an option as well, or the cog, just because there's not as many players that run the cog, just because there's not as many precision DPS. It's much more common to run into someone running the Tetra in a pug. So you could run the cog just to give yourself a bonus to precision, which is just hitting a cross weapon combo, grants you and up to 7 group members precision equal to 1.125% of your health. So those are your options. You could also, if you're a power set, it's going to be really dependent, but if you're a power set that really uses their supercharge very often as precision, then you could run the Soul Cloak, but you lose a lot of stats then. You lose 3% prec and the base prec. So that's a big drop in prec to run the Soul Cloak. So you're much better off running these three. If the Sparring Ai procs, that's great. You get a huge boost for a short time in your damage. If it doesn't proc, you still get the extra 2% passive prec. But those are your best three for prec currently.